Welcome to the Sci-Fi Evolution channel. Zaid let out a sigh of frustration, wiping sweat and oil from his face with a stained cloth. His ship, the Quantum Awakening, was in poor condition, sitting in a dimly lit hangar, with sparks flying from intermittent welding lights overhead. The landing was a disaster. Pirates attacked him near the neutral border, and he barely made it here to Echo Outpost, a remote outpost known for harboring the desperate and the brave. He surveyed the damage with growing fear, seeing exposed wires, charred metal cladding, and cracks that exposed internal equipment that no ordinary mechanic could repair. Behind him, he heard the soft sound of small footsteps. On the metal surface of the hangar, Zaid's attention was riveted. He turned around, expecting to see an indifferent employee approaching to collect the docking fee. Instead, his eyes widened in surprise as a petite alien girl confidently approached him. Only 4 feet tall, the girl's skin shimmered a vibrant shade of green under the flickering lights. Her eyes, a deep shade of blue, were full of curiosity and wariness, and her short blonde hair framed her delicate features. Dressed in a simple jumpsuit decorated with tool marks and grease stains, she looked like she belonged here, in her domain. Despite her small stature, the girl exuded a quiet self-confidence that immediately attracted Zaid's interest. "You're a pretty good sapient," she said with a half-smile, revealing a row of adorable teeth. "But I've seen worse," she added. Zaid blinked, momentarily taken aback. Her effortless self-confidence. He didn't expect help from someone who looked like it would be difficult for him to lift even one panel of the ship's hull, let alone rebuild an entire starship. Indeed, he admitted, gesturing towards Quantum Awakening, with a tired wave of his hand, they were nearing the edge. The pirates liked his cargo, and they decided to try to force their way inside. She stepped forward to take a closer look at the damage, gently running her small green hands over the twisted metal and torn wiring with a level of intimacy and precision that he couldn't help but admire. Her delicate fingers moved expertly, assessing the components with quick and methodical touches. He watched as her bright eyes narrowed thoughtfully, as if she was visualizing solutions he couldn't even begin to comprehend. He had dealt with countless mechanics across the galaxy, seasoned veterans with decades of experience, but none of them had ever aroused such admiration. A surge of trust or curiosity rose inside him. After a short pause, he turned to her, his expression serious but reassuring. It would take effort, but he could fix it. Her engines, her power core, even her shield emitter. He could make them better than ever before. She tilted her head, her blue eyes shining with pride and enthusiasm, but only if he trusted her. Zaid chuckled softly, feeling strangely at ease with this strange little Australian who somehow exuded competence far beyond her size. Without hesitation, he held out his hand. "My name is Zaid," he said, "and at this point, I would trust anyone who looked at my damaged ship and said they could fix it." She smiled warmly and sincerely, firmly shaking his hand. "Eris," she replied, "you won't regret it." As soon as their hands parted, Eris set to work with a level of efficiency that left Zaid in awe. He was standing next to her, handing her the tools she needed. "Do you do this often?" he finally asked, breaking the comfortable silence between them. As she soldered a delicate bundle of wires into place, saving the pilots from imminent disaster, Eris laughed softly, her voice melodious with mirth. "Something like that. Let's just say I've seen a lot of broken ships and people. Fixing them usually goes hand in hand." She paused, giving him a curious look. Her eyes suddenly became serious again. "What were you carrying anyway?" she asked. Pirates usually do not pursue random cargo unless it is valuable or dangerous. Zaid hesitated, not knowing how much to reveal. He accepted the job without question, paid handsomely for transporting sealed containers. The pirate attack hinted at ulterior motives that he had not previously considered, and this realization tormented him. However, he felt a strange reluctance to hold back. There was something about Eris that he found trustworthy, a reassuring openness that he rarely encountered in his travels. "To be honest, I'm not really sure," Zaid admitted, leaning against the wall of the hangar with his arms crossed. They paid a significant amount for discretion, saying it was a simple task. Eris furrowed her brows as she considered his words before replying. "This usually indicates trouble. Anything valuable or secret tends to attract attention that is best avoided." She gave him a reassuring look, her tone firm but comforting. "We need to finish this repair quickly and leave the station before anyone else arrives." Zaid nodded, feeling a wave of unease wash over him. "I agree. I would prefer to avoid any further unexpected meetings if possible." They worked hard all night, the sounds of welding and quiet conversations echoing through the quiet hangar. Zaid found himself more and more grateful for Eris's presence and her unwavering confidence, which helped ease his tension. As the hours passed and his ship slowly returned to life under her care, he felt relieved and grateful. He silently reflected on the peculiar turn of events that had brought them together, reflecting on their skillful fingers. This green-skinned Australian, with incredible talent, was a sapient pilot who became entangled in dangers far beyond her comprehension. Whatever awaited her, she felt that meeting Zaid had changed her path forever. Finally, Eris stepped back, wiping the grease off her hands and smiling brightly at Zaid. Her eyes shone with unmistakable pride as she announced, "Your ship is ready." She added, "But if you're heading into trouble, I want to go with you." Zaid stared at her for a moment, speechless. Then he broke into a gentle smile and said, "I thought you'd never ask." While Eris was packing her things into her travel bag, Zaid was watching her closely. He was amazed at how quickly she left everything familiar behind. Her tools, her workplace in the hangar, even some small trinkets that hinted at a life she rarely talked about. He stood near the hatch of the Quantum Awakening, waiting for Eris to join him on their journey. Casually leaning against the hull of the ship with his arms crossed over his chest, Zaid wasn't used to sharing his journey or his ship with anyone. But seeing Eris' determination, he calmed his uncertainty about the risks ahead. There was something comforting about her confidence and calmness, and he knew he had made the right decision by letting her join him. "Are you sure about this?" he asked softly, tilting his head to gauge her reaction. "My lifestyle is not the safest. You saw what happened to my ship. It happens to me a lot." Eris stopped for a moment, turning to him with a funny smile on her lips. She zipped up her travel bag and easily hoisted it onto one shoulder. Her bright blue eyes sparkled with quiet determination as she said, "I've spent a lot of time hiding here, fixing other people's problems and avoiding my own. Maybe it's time for me to do something else, something a little more reckless." Her voice was firm, with a subtle tinge of determination. Excitement permeated her gentle tone, and Zaid felt his anxiety melt away, replaced by a new admiration. Despite her small stature, she was far from fragile in spirit. They boarded the ship together, and when Zaid sealed the hatch behind them, he headed for the cockpit. Eris easily settled into the co-pilot's seat, adjusting its height with a practiced grace that suggested she had a lot of experience despite her diminutive size. Zaid strapped himself into the pilot's seat and began checking the systems, admiring the smooth and quiet hum coming from the repaired engine systems. Her repairs had been exceptional, and his ship hadn't sounded this good in years. Zaid glanced at her sideways and offered her a small, grateful smile. "Okay then," he said, activating the flight controls and initiating pre-launch procedures. "Let's see what you've done to my ship." The Quantum Awakening roared to life. To begin with, Zaid skillfully steered the ship away from the hangar, leaving the station and its problems behind. They sat in silence for a moment, admiring the stars that unfolded around them. Then an urgent message from the cargo owner flashed on the screen, and Zaid instantly recognized the symbol. A voice crackled through the cabin, urging Zaid to return to the rendezvous point and not to open the containers under any circumstances. A tense silence followed the broadcast, and Zaid and Eris exchanged looks of uncertainty. They were both aware of the importance of the cargo and the potential danger it posed. Despite the urgency of the message, they knew they needed to make a decision about what to do next. She frowned slightly, her bright eyes narrowed in thought. "Unstable? That doesn't sound very good," she said softly, shifting in her chair to face him fully. "Zaid, can you tell me what exactly we're carrying?" He rubbed his jaw thoughtfully, with a worried expression on his face. "To be honest, I'm not sure, and that's part of the problem. They paid us well enough to keep us quiet, but now I'm starting to suspect that there's more to it than we were led to believe, and it's dragging you in too." Eris shook her head, offering him a reassuring smile. "I volunteered to help, remember? I'm not afraid of a little danger. In fact, it makes things more interesting." Her voice was calm and determined, easing Zaid's guilt for dragging her into this. "But maybe we should take a look. If the cargo is dangerous, shouldn't we know what we're facing?" Zaid hesitated, uncertainty flashing across his face. But Eris' logic was sound. Regardless of the danger they face, ignorance will not help them. He nodded slowly, standing up and gesturing for her to follow. "Let's take a look." They moved into the hold of the ship, where several large, sealed metal boxes were tightly secured. Zaid barely paid attention to them when he uploaded them, too focused on the promise of fast and profitable work. Eris stepped forward, her fingers gently stroking the electronic seals. With impressive skill, she carefully bypassed the locks and redefined complex security protocols in a matter of moments. Zaid felt a new respect for her abilities, which went far beyond simple mechanical repairs. The drawer slowly swished open, and they both leaned forward, peering into its depths. Zaid's pulse quickened as he saw the intricate, glowing crystal suspended in a complex device. It pulsed softly, emitting an eerie and rhythmic glow. Illuminated by the light, their faces were shaded in shades of blue and purple. Eris's breath caught loudly, and her eyes widened in recognition and surprise. "Zaid, this is precursor technology," she muttered, her voice barely audible. "My people once used similar artifacts, sources of great power, but incredibly unstable in the wrong hands. It shouldn't even exist anymore." Zaid stepped closer, feeling the weight of the situation fall on his shoulders. Why would someone transport something so dangerous? He wondered aloud, concern creeping into his voice despite his attempts to hide it. Eris looked at him sympathetically, her expression serious. "Because you're nobody. No offense. You won't be asked any questions, and no one will notice. At least that's what they thought. But now, after we survive the attack and open this container, they won't let us go so easily. The reality of our situation is becoming clearer." Zaid met Eris's gaze and stood firm. "Then let's fight, Eris. I won't let them take it away or hurt anyone." He felt determined, fueled by her determination and trust. Eris smiled, proud of his words. "Good, because I won't let you either," she said, putting a reassuring hand on his arm. "Let's seal it up again and make a plan." When they sealed the container, Zaid realized that they were in a situation that was bigger and more dangerous. Nevertheless, he felt confident with Eris by his side. Maybe there's still a chance. Zaid returned to the cockpit, and Eris followed him. The image of the glowing artifact was imprinted in their minds. He felt a sense of unease come over him, heavier than anything he had ever experienced. But having Eris by his side calmed him down. When he sat down in the pilot seat and activated the front sensors again, Eris slid into the co-pilot seat and began tapping the console rapidly. Her fingers danced purposefully over the controls as she scanned, her bright blue eyes focused and intense. Zaid watched her for a while, admiring the way her small shoulders took on challenges fearlessly. There was a power in her that inspired him and reminded him why he needed to step up now more than ever. "Any signs of harassment? What is it?" he asked in a low voice, his eyes flicking over the distant scanner. Eris shook her head slightly, but her brow remained furrowed with worry. "Nothing yet, but that doesn't mean they won't come," she said softly, adjusting the sensitivity of the scanner to penetrate deeper into the changing void ahead. "This artifact is broadcasting a weak signal. If we don't disguise it, whoever sent the pirates after us earlier will be able to track us again." Zaid's stomach churned at the thought, and he cursed softly, squeezing the throttle harder. "That's great. Just what we need. A glowing beacon that every warlord and cartel in this quadrant can follow." Eris's lips pressed into a thin line as she considered the situation. "Not without the right equipment, but I might figure something out if we can find a dump or a tech bazaar." Zaid nodded, adjusting the ship's trajectory towards the nearest trading station on their star charts. "Then we'll go there. We'll mask it, get rid of it, and get out of this mess." They fell silent, each lost in their own thoughts as they planned their next move. The vast expanse of hyperspace enveloped them as they traveled in silence. Zaid's mind was filled with unanswered questions. Why would someone decide to transport such a valuable artifact through an unprotected space? Why was he chosen? He was a small-time independent pilot who barely had enough sense and fuel to keep his ship running. He felt Eris's gaze on him and glanced sideways to see her studying him. Her green skin glowed softly in the light, her blonde bob framing her face. "You're thinking too much," she said softly, offering a gentle smile. "It's not your fault." Zaid let out a humorless chuckle. "Really? If I had turned down the job, someone else would have taken it." Eris calmly interrupted, her blue eyes fixed. "And they probably wouldn't have come out of the first meeting. At least this way, the artifact is in safe hands. Who really cares about the fate of individuals?" Her words were straightforward, but they pierced deep, drowning out his remorse. He felt warmth spreading inside him, despite the cold uncertainty of their future. He didn't say a word, but she seemed to understand his silent appreciation anyway. The navigation system beeped softly, indicating their arrival at their destination. Zaid disconnected from hyperspace, and the stars turned into a huge metallic cluster orbiting a dusty brown planet. Arcady Dump, the infamous shopping mall and landfill, was drifting in low orbit. Known for its shady dealings and black market components, it was a place where no questions were asked. The hangar was filled with small cargo ships, tugboats, and scavenger ships, drifting between docking pylons under flickering lights. Eris scanned the radio channels and quickly chose a docking location on the outskirts of the station to avoid attracting unwanted attention. They quietly descended onto the cracked steel platform. Zaid turned off the engines, while Eris unbuckled her seatbelt and unzipped her tool bag to check the contents. "We need to move fast," she said, sliding off her seat with feline grace. "If this place is anything like the last bazaar I visited, half the merchants are spies for the cartels. They would have sold information about our arrival in a few cycles if they saw that we were buying precursor suppression technology." Zaid stood up and took his handheld blaster from the storage compartment in the cockpit, checking the power module before holstering it on his hip. He wasn't looking for a confrontation, but he'd be damned if he was caught unprepared. "Stay close," he said simply. Eris rolled her eyes with a slight smile. "I'm not the one who almost crashed last time, remember?" she teased, her tone softening the tension that had built up in his stomach. Together they descended the ramp into the chaos of the Arcadia Bazaar. The market was a maze of narrow paths, with rickety stalls and flashing neon signs overhead. Xenomerchants of various kinds were selling crates of spare engine coils, damaged plasma channels, and unstable power elements in the bustling interstellar market. The combination of hot coolant, Fried tuberous roots and ozone air created a characteristic atmosphere. Zaid kept his gaze glued to the crowd, occasionally noticing fleeting glances that lingered on Eris' distinctive features or his worn mechanic's coverall. They made their way through the crowd until Eris abruptly stopped in front of a small booth, which was operated by a tall insectoid creature with iridescent plates of shell and multifaceted eyes that clicked when they focused on her. "I need a harmonic inversion modulator, a 3-level safety net, and a frequency damper calibrated for the residual precursor wavelengths," Eris said calmly, folding her arms across her chest. The merchant's mandibles twitched in surprise before he leaned forward. His voice was a guttural rasp when he spoke. "Expensive order, my little one. Are you hiding from someone?" Eris tilted her head slightly, her eyes narrowed coldly. "It's none of your business. Can you provide what I need or not?" The insectoid clicked his mandibles again, then nodded slowly. "Wait here." He hobbled behind his curtain. Zaid warily scanned the surroundings while Eris scanned the area for potential threats. A few moments later, the merchant returned, carrying a small, soft suitcase. He placed it with great care. 15,000 cents, he said. Zaid winced at the price. It was half of his bill, but they had no choice. With a quick movement, he transferred the funds, quickly grabbing the suitcase while Eris nodded her thanks. They turned to leave, moving through the market stalls to the hangar. Zaid felt a tingling sensation on the back of his neck as they walked. It was an instinct honed by countless dangerous missions. He looked around unnoticed and noticed two people following them in the distance. "We have company," he whispered to himself. Eris did not turn around, but maintained her pace. She asked. Zaid replied, "Two sapients are most likely armed." He looked ahead and noticed a gap between the counters leading to a side corridor. "On my command, turn left," he whispered to Eris. The fingers gently touched him in a silent gesture of recognition. They quickly turned into an alley, their footsteps echoing off the metal grates as the screams grew louder behind them. Zaid pulled out his weapon, ready for a confrontation, but Eris stopped abruptly next to the locked maintenance hatch, quickly opening the access panel and bypassing the lock. The door swished open, and they ducked inside just as plasma shells charred the walls of the hallway. They plunged into darkness, the distant sound of pursuit fading away as Eris sealed the hatch from the inside. Breathing heavily, Zaid gave a short, strained laugh. "Remind me never to doubt your instincts again," he said. Eris smiled in the dim light of her wrist lamp. "Remind me to teach you the best evasion techniques," she teased. He grinned, the adrenaline still coursing through him. Together they continued to move deeper into the technical corridors, not knowing their way, but united in their determination to survive. The galaxy rushed towards them. They quickly crossed dimly lit technical corridors, the narrow metal walls vibrating from the distant hum of engines and machinery deep in the core of Arcadia. Zaid kept his hand blaster at the ready as they ran, his boots echoing off the stepway, each step filled with urgency. Behind him, Eris effortlessly kept pace, her bright blue eyes scanning ahead, her wrist lamp illuminating cables, rusty panels, and dripping coolant pipes overhead. The distant hum of voices and market noise grew fainter as they deepened, replaced by an oppressive industrial silence broken only by the occasional flicker of light. Zaid felt sweat trickle down his neck under his mechanic's coverall, tension tightening in his chest with every step. But Eris' resolute presence calmed him, pushing him forward without words. Finally, they came to a more spacious place where they could breathe more freely.